to another episode of the Human Blueprint. And so we've been getting a lot of parents emailing in,
Yes.
asking questions, and we're fortunate enough to have Jeanette with us and her daughter. And so I know that you guys have some things you want to talk about. We really want to go into parenting and being a teenager and all that good stuff. So we can start with some questions if you'd like.
Sure. So when you have a parent and their thinking or their speaking is not always as pure, how can you like know for sure that your thinking is the right, or like how to...
Can you give a small example?
So, for example, if you are a teenager and you want to be vegan,
Yes.
but the parents
Say
disagree.
no.
Yes.
Okay.
How could you like give that message in the right way?
So number one, some parents I've seen, it doesn't matter how much education you give them, how much truth you give them, how much they don't want it because it's not their culture.
Yeah.
And so the problem is you have to understand is we have to be very careful what people consider your culture, because when you say it's your culture, you're segregating yourself from your friend, your classmate, the person down the street. So I say humanity is our culture, right? So we have to make sure, like, isn't it the right thing to do to care for life and preserve life? Well, then why is it that we don't use that as a universal culture, as opposed to saying, that's not what we do or that's not what they do? And, you put yourself in a box, and a lot of the parents out there, they have to be a little careful of the boxes they want to put their children in, because that's where we look and they say, well, why did this kid do this in school? Or why did the kid do that when they grew up? Well, you look at all the boxes you put them in and they become caged. And then finally, when they want to break out of that cage, something happens where maybe it's not always legal.
Yes. True. And when it comes to friend groups,
Yes.
it's the same question also with the friend groups. So if you're in a friend group and they're and you're vegan and they're like not understanding why, how is it the right way, like expressing it, like telling it in a good way so they won't like...
How about I give you an example?
Okay.
So when I grew up, phones didn't have cameras. When I grew up, internet was barely coming on. Okay, so that gives you an example of timeline.
Yeah.
So a lot of people didn't have access to so-called quote-unquote information the way they do now. So they couldn't be as educated as they could do now. So when I grew up, I barely spoke to anybody because everyone I saw was very, very ignorant. They said, no, I have to have this. I love this. I need that. And so all of I. And I said, if I try talking to anybody, what are they going to do? They're going to argue because they're only focused on I. So what do I got to do? I got to show why I'm different and why I'm better because I do something different. Not from an egotistical standpoint, but from an understanding that there can be another way of how to be successful at doing something. So that's when I turned to sports. And when I turned to sports, that's when I started taking on the leadership role every single time. So when you go in sports and it's like, oh, you get first pick or I don't want first pick, I always took first pick to choose my team so I can control. Because when I can choose first, then that means those that I chose tend to listen easier, listen more, willing to make some changes. And that's how I grew my leadership. From a young kid, played every sport to make sure that it wasn't just about me. I barely played any sport that was just me. Every sport had to be team sport only. So that when I did that, then I brought the unity to the community. So then when I showed this is what I do, I never said, you need to do this because I do that. You need to do this because this is better. No, I showed, okay, if we're here and we have a common denominator, this is a sport, and we all want to play it, but why is it that one person is outperforming every single other person on the team? Then they wake up, then they start asking questions. Or why is it that this person has much greater results than I do? Start asking questions. Or why is it that this person doesn't get tired? Start asking questions. Why is it that this person's never sick? Start asking questions. Why is it this person can outdo this, this, and this, and I can't even do that? Start asking questions. So that's where you have to become silent and not try to use your words as a shortcut, where if we know that communication is 90% plus nonverbal, then why is it we're only trying to use 110% verbal to get people to understand us and see us, but we have to show it first. And And so when you look at friend groups, they're all great to talk, but they never walk the walk. That's why they'll say that they like you today, they don't like you tomorrow. Anything they say you can never take to the bank because it can't be trusted. So that's why you have to so-called be a person of your word, and your word is as good as gold, so that when you build that reputation of that habit, then you find the right people who don't go to your school but maybe live 2 blocks away or maybe a different region away. You find maybe that one other person that keeps their word. Then you maybe find another person in a different area that keeps their word, and then you'll realize that you become this little spark, and you just have to spark more by speaking less and doing more. That's what I did. And so when people would see me walk down the hall, every time people saw you, you had the respect of whoever it was, because they knew that you were a man of action or a person of action, not someone that only talked about it. Meanwhile, all they did was give excuses. Why they're late, why they can't do this, why they can't do that. And when you're looking for friends, you have to make sure you're not just there for the likes, you're there for the respect. Anybody can like and dislike something in an instant. Respect means it is earned. That's what you want. And too many people in this world are only looking for the instant like and not enough build it up so I earn your respect. Right?
Yes.
So I think that you really need to stand out and shine like a star. I know we talk about that a lot. So Mathea, do you find that with the people that you're growing up with and school friends, are people afraid to stand out? Because I remember my teenage years, a lot of people wanted to stand out, but it wasn't necessarily for the right reasons. It wasn't for, okay, I'm vegan and I'm choosing a healthier lifestyle. Like that probably wouldn't be cool, so people wouldn't want to stand by that.
Yeah.
So do you find that people really stand up for what they believe in, or is it the opposite?
I like mostly opposite, because they think that's the right, that's what they have been learned. And that's just something that I feel like is a common thing in a lot of teenagers, because they haven't found themselves yet. But I know there are different kind of people, and I know there are probably people or teenagers around that want to stand by the right thing.
But if they don't have a formula, how can they do that? If they don't know the rules of the game, they don't know how the game is played, known as life, and they don't know what to apply and add that formula to the equation so that they can get a more favorable outcome, you're at disadvantage.
True.
And so I think one word we always talk about here is belief. And when you look at the teachers, the parents, and all that, you always hear people say, you're not good enough. Nothing's going to come from you. You can't do this. No, no, no. And it's like they put their disbelief on somebody else. And that's the worst thing you can do, because that person, if they lose their belief, they have nothing. And that's one thing you could never, ever do as a person, is you can never, ever lose your belief in yourself. You lose that when it's time for you to grow up and you don't believe in yourself, no one's going to believe in you. You can't get that job. You can't go and get those investors. You can't go and get into those social circles, right? You have to believe in who you are and know what you're standing up for. Because a lot of people don't know what they stand up for, because they don't even know what they believe in. They just follow what everyone else is doing, and then they no longer think for themselves. And that's dangerous.
Yes.
And I know, that there's a lot of parents that are on the path of changing from within.
Yes.
And then, a lot of people share, it's hard when it comes to your family, like your kids, like, okay, so I can change, but how can you make someone else change, right? And for me, when we started this, to see Mathea standing up for what she believes in so strong and brings it so strong to school, it really makes me proud of her. Like, not because she's mine, but because she's actually doing it for herself. I can see that she shines from it, that it makes her happy.
Okay.
But also it is tough to see sometimes, or experience, that it can also be a lonely path sometimes, especially in the beginning, because it's you might, like you said, you might not have those friends in school. Like you might not find those people so close. You have to wait, like you have to show up. You have to do what you have to do first before they will come to you. And so, staying strong by her side and see how she does it is really, I feel like we're doing this journey together.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like also maybe more of a question, like for the parents, when you're changing yourself, like there will be resistance by the people you're close to that's not been used to this, like, you know, your spouse or your children or whatever. But it's like, and the, you know, your family around you, like they will see, what are you doing? Like, why is happening? You will keep on being questioned. But how to stay focused and to stay true to what you believe in.
Okay.
That's what I'm thinking. Like, I feel like for a lot, when it comes to, like, it's so easy to be distracted when someone comes and like say, well, this is not what we used to do, or this is not how we want to do it. Like, how to stay strong on that.
Okay. So I'll ask you a question, and I want everyone to answer. Okay?
Let's do it.
When you walk outside a house, do you hear other animals?
Yeah, I hear birds.
You hear birds? What else?
Mainly birds.
What else?
Where I live.
Birds, yeah.
Birds?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, other animals make noise too. You just don't hear it.
Yeah.
But they're communicating. But you see, their communication is very different to how we communicate. When they communicate, it's like when there's something good or danger. Something good or danger. When we communicate, it's like, not sure if you go onto chat rooms or something, negative, 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 nothing positive. Or you look at someone when they develop or share something, right? All of the feedback, negative, 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 negative. And it's like, what gave us the right that we could impose those negativity onto others, hide behind a device, and we call that communication? That the people who are sharing it will actually read that and then question their own beliefs. That's why we have to be careful of what tech we use and how we use it. Because one thing I learned when I was a kid, I had to go and take a walk in nature. Okay, so let's go do a walk. So I take a walk. My father asked me, what do you hear? So I said birds. I said maybe a squirrel, maybe a chipmunk, maybe a different animal. He's like, everything you said was wrong. I said, but I did hear the bird. I did hear this. He's like, it doesn't matter. He's like, when I asked you that question, I wanted to see your level of consciousness. He's like, because if you could truly hear, you wouldn't hear anything at all because you would be at peace. But if you hear all the other distractions, everything, you cannot focus on that piece. And so your life is the same way. You listen to a bird here, listen to this, listen to that, all these different things that become the distractions, and you're no longer at peace. And then when you can no longer find that peace, then we have mental illness, then we have physical ailments, then we start questioning ourselves, doubting ourselves, and then the stress kicks in and we compact that and we call that life. And so for me, that's what I learned, and that's how I learned it, was to make sure that when I listen to things, what are you actually listening to? Are you listening to the negativity, or are you making sure that you protect anything before it comes in and decipher it first? That's what this is for. All these senses are the security system, not the pleasure system. A lot of kids, when you look at what they eat, look at what they do, everything is pleasure system because that's what they're taught. And so for me, I never understood that. For me, it was always the security system, because it's like my father could be cooking something. I can walk in the door maybe 20, 30 feet away, and I can know exactly what he cooked, how he cooked it, what flavor went into it, and what went along with it. Like that. That's how I was trained. So that you don't have this, you don't depend on this, you don't depend on this. It's just the feeling, so when you're at peace, that instinct and intuition can be developed. But when you have all the noise of all the music, TV, all the distractions, then you can no longer have the peace. And then when you no longer have the peace, you can no longer harness that instinct. And then that's when it starts to go away. And then can't be found anymore because it's been caged.
So what would be some steps to get to that point? Because I know a lot of people weren't trained like you. So.
Because they will never want that training.
Well, that's very true.
If you saw the training, you wouldn't want it.
That's true. And that's a whole nother story. But are there steps, or does it take that bitter training that you had to go through?
There has to be some give, and that means you have to be willing to face that bitterness first. You have to not be afraid of that, but you also have to be able to change very quickly, and that's something most people can't do. Most people can't go to a country and within the same day know how to say 5 phrases, how to say thank you, and how to get food. Most people can't do that. I can do that. But I don't say that for ego. I say that because that's your ability to evolve quick. Most people no longer evolve, they're devolving. And so for me, I always want to make sure I'm on the right side of evolution so that you can develop those gifts. So then when you have those talents and gifts, then you put the skill set around that, then your value goes through the roof. But so many people are sitting back on a device saying, oh, I can't find this, can't find that, don't have this, don't have that. They point out all the negative things because that's how they're trained now. And then all of that intuition and instinct has been drowned. And then it's no longer wanting to serve you because you didn't do what was necessary to preserve it. And so the number one step, go out and make sure, like, if you hear a bird, you can hear it, but then you also don't hear it. You hear a plane maybe flying over, you hear it, but then you don't hear it. You hear someone ringing a bell on the bicycle, you can hear it, but then you don't hear it. You have to know what to allow in, so that security system is so strict that nothing can be allowed in unless you allow it, and it follows a very strict guideline.
And I can relate. Like, a lot of people say, "Oh, I have this song in my head." Like, you know, it keeps on spinning inside your head, even if you listened to it like yesterday or a week ago, right? But because we allowed that noise in, and it's
freely,
yeah,
without even realizing it. And until you put and install that security system, you will have a lot of unpleasant guests.
Because it's not just a song coming, like some of the things.
Correct. Correct. And then the bad thing is once it goes in, well, where is it?
Yeah.
And then you don't realize it's been there for so long. And then when you finally have to address it, you don't want to look inside, can't find it. You need a navigation, you need something to punch in on a screen to find it. Can't find it, it's going to stay there. And that becomes your baggage and baggage and baggage. And as a parent, you need to make sure you understand that you have to not only show your children first and foremost what it takes to be a proper adult, a good human being, but you have to make sure you're playing by the same rules you expect your kids to play by. How many times parents reach out to me, my kid doesn't do this. So I asked them, do you do that? No. Why would I? So I said, so you're playing by a complete separate set of rules and you expect them to respect you? It doesn't work that way. You have to show you're playing the same game with the same rules and show how you're going to lead. Then they follow.
But it's interesting because we had this talk in the car, not with Mathea today, but with my youngest. And so she would not live. It was just a really simple thing, but she didn't want to listen. And I told her that you don't want to listen to me. Like, this keeps on going, like, you don't want to listen to me, right? Even if it's the smallest thing, like, you don't want to listen to me. And then she said, I don't want to, like, put him on the, what do you call it? Like, I don't want to put him out or whatever, but she's like, well, this is what Dad does. Like, well, you don't do that. You know, it's like very funny because she's like,
That's the point of reference. That's what they're always going to refer to why it's okay.
Yeah, and I was like, well, that's true. Like, if I say something, sometimes he doesn't listen, right? So it's like, and she just picked it and she just said it like, just once in a second, like in a second. And she's like,
That's the defense.
Yes.
So that they can continue doing what they want to do.
Yeah. And I told her, like, but it doesn't make me, like, I don't feel good when you do that. I was calm, so I was able to just say that. And then, but before I would maybe be more upset or, you know, use a lot of words and she would feel it and she would keep on going, you know, it would just keep on building up on each other instead of just calming the whole situation. But yeah, it's very, being a parent is so many.
And not to cut you, just one last thing to fill that. How come we need a license to drive? You need a permit to build a house. You need a permit just to build something. You need all sorts of license permits just to go into a different country. But yet when it's time to be a parent or find someone that you really enjoy and then you want to start a family, there's no rule book.
No,
there's no handbook. There's no guideline. And so you're supposed to figure it out?
Yeah. And that is the thing I remembered. I just got Mathea at the hospital. And I just totally freaked out. I was like, we have to leave this baby here because I don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
I don't know how to, because I felt the responsibility in a way that I had never felt before, right? Because it just came over me. This is a person, I need to take care of her in the best way, not just for me, but for the world. Like, this is such a huge responsibility. And I'm like, oh my God, what have we done almost, you know? But,
it's too late.
But then it's like, but it turned out good. So. But, you know, it's really, and even though if you've done it once, you get another kid and you have to do it all over again because it's another person. It's not the same way. Like, you have to, so, but yeah.
And you see, some parents don't realize this is how you raise one kid is not how you raise the second.
No.
Everyone has to be raised individually.
Yes.
Same thing when we speak with other people. How we speak to maybe a spouse, we can't speak the same way to someone outside.
No.
Same thing with a friend. How you speak to your parents, you can't speak to a friend the same way. They wouldn't understand. You have to do accordingly so that the message you're trying to share gets delivered to the right address. And a lot of people don't realize that, and so they'll speak really loud all the time, or they'll speak where you can't hear them, and it's very difficult to evolve that way when you're not delivering the right message to the right person. Then that becomes the habit. Then when you finally have something special to share, no one listens.
Yeah.
You haven't developed that.
Yeah. That's true.
But go ahead.
So I was going to ask you, as a parent, what should be the number one thing that you're striving for in terms of raising your kid? Like, is it respect, or is it love, or what's that main ingredient?
Well,
that
there's
you really
several,
want to
but
instill?
to name one, as a parent, you have to fall in love with sacrifice, because no one will understand the sacrifice of a parent until you become one. And so a lot of parents who can't live up to that sacrifice of responsibility, they want to run. They don't know what to do. And so that's why you have to understand what sacrifice actually is before having a family. If you don't know what that actually is, having a family will humble you very quickly. But then if you run away from that, who suffers the most? Not the kid, not the child, not the family. And then you look at how they go out into society when they don't have that love, when they needed it most. They become very, very rebellious. And so we have to take that responsibility to understand the sacrifices it takes to actually raise people you love. And a lot of people are not willing to pay that sacrifice anymore. And so many families are broken because of it.
And for me, I think also, you know, having our own family making me understand my parents, you know, what they did for us, for me,
what they meant when they were trying to tell you something, right?
And what they still do for us, you know. It's just, there's, like, they gave me my life, like, I can never pay them back. So it's like, and being guided by you, I remember you pointed that out once, that the time that was said, it's like, how can I ever actually allow myself to be upset with them or mad at them, or, you know, because they've given me, but I cannot give it back. So my duty, you know, is to respect them and help them the best way I can, and to do whatever is best so that they can, and I can go through the things that maybe they were not able to do, or maybe not, you know. And it's just, I see them in such a different light, and with a lot of more respect and love, that is just makes such a big difference.
And that's wonderful. And I think a lot of people listening to this can learn something from everything that was shared.
Of course. So as a kid, and let's say you want to help your parent become healthier or make positive changes, and you do have that utmost respect for them, what's the balance between the respect you have for them and trying to help them evolve?
It's all about the delivery. if you over deliver something that they're not ready for, they'll shut you out.
If you don't,
if you don't have enough ammunition to have a conversation, that also will make them shut you out. Because remember, you're going against what they consider their beliefs to be and their culture to be believed on. And that is where so many people fall short. Because who said because you have a certain skin, a certain place you're born, that's all you can do? That's a cage. What good comes from that? When you imprison your mind and your heart, your soul will never evolve. Right. So for a lot of children who maybe want to share things with their elders or with their families, I mean, be prepared, but know exactly how much to share and when to share it. Because if you do it too much and you put too much in their face, they'll shut you out. They'll be turned off. If you don't have enough of the evidence or you don't have enough of what it is you're trying to share, so-called educate them, they'll also shut you out. Be prepared, but watch how you deliver it.
That's very helpful. I know for me, I wish I would have had that type of insight before, pointing out certain things to my parents, because I feel like I was very passionate about it, and it may have came from a good place, but it wasn't necessarily
received that way.
Exactly. It was interpreted and received the completely opposite way, where I probably may have even disrespected.
Agreed. And that's why we have to be cautious always about the delivery. Always.
And we actually had that conversation the other day. Or Mathea is very, very eco-friendly, and so, which is very good. And so she made us now. There's only our girls now in the house, and then she made me buy all these organic bags and all the boxes and everything that just to be.
She's your police officer.
Yeah, we went to the bulk barn. Nothing, no packaging. Yeah, and just teaches us so much about you can't just put any plastic in, and you have to sort it out, and just teaching us. And I was like this is so good, but sometimes, to be honest, it can be a bit much. Like it's, and then I was like, you have to be. I agree what you're doing. But you just have to be careful. So, okay, if I want to use one plastic bag, please let me do that. And
you'll get there eventually.
Yes, I will. Yes. But it was so interesting. I know you're very happy about this, but just take it. Yeah. So,
but see, it works both sides, where both have to cooperate and understand each other.
Yeah.
But if you're not willing to at least get to the table to hear each other, it doesn't matter. You'll always be closed off because people hide behind their ignorance.
Yeah. And when we just said that, we were just laughing afterwards, and we don't have any plastic, right?
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say that's where communication becomes so important.
Key for everything.
Because when you were talking about, you read something online or something that somebody posted, and you question your entire belief system. I think that doesn't really have to do with communication, but a lot of people are voicing just anything they want and saying anything they want online because it's easy. It's just
you can hide.
Yeah. You don't necessarily see the repercussions.
Not accountable.
So I think developing the communication is important, as well as having a strong belief system.
Agreed.
So are there any other questions or things that you wanted to bring up, Mathea or Jeanette?
Well, say that you're in a friend group and there is one person in that friend group that's really has a lot of problems.
Okay.
You want to help that friend.
Okay.
How's the right way to help that? Because that friend may say no, I don't want any help.
So you always never want to turn your back on a friend, right? But you also have to be cautious because certain things they're going through, they're not ready for outside help. They're not ready for anything for people to get involved in their issue yet. And I know that firsthand because I try to help a lot of people, and you learn quickly you can't help everybody. And when you try to, it may not be the right time. Maybe it may be a year from now. Maybe it may be 2 years from now. You don't know. But you still show that you have good intentions and that you're right there for them. And if they need anything, they know where to turn to. But don't be the person that goes and inundates other people and says, oh, you need help? No, I know this. Here, this is what you need to do. This is why you need to do it. Watch this video. Only do this. Only do that. No plastic, right? And it's too much at one time.
Yeah.
So that's when you have to let them know, I know you may not be ready to talk, but when you are, I'm here. And leave it at that. But people can't walk away. They don't know how to leave things alone. And so they'll overdo it, pester you, right? And then that turns the person off, and they didn't want help from anybody. And then what you thought was a friend can actually be someone you don't even know 2 years from now, because we did a disservice on how to help someone. Do you understand?
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. So does that help? Does that help answer questions?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Do you have any closing thoughts?
I just think that we need to have more open dialogue between parents and children, because I don't see enough of that. It's always do as I say, don't do as I do. And that doesn't work.
Yeah, I agree. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in.
Thank you.
If this brought you value, just leave a comment, possibly leave a rating, let us know. And if there's any other topics, we're always open to sharing and bringing you value. So thank you again for being on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate you.
Thank you so much.